All right, how's everyone doing today? Today is, today will be a different kind of video because, number one, earlier this week my grandma died, so I had to make an emergency flight to to Mexico because of that. So, everyone who's watching this, if you could pray for her soul, I would really appreciate that, and my family would as well. She was Catholic as well, so I think that she would appreciate that. Yeah. But today, while I was in Mexico, there was a bunch of crazy things happening, specifically with Donald Trump and Pope Leo the 14th. The 14th. And this, it caught me off guard because in no way did I think, I'm not a fan of Donald Trump. As a Hispanic, I don't feel like his policies or his beliefs are specifically good to Hispanics. Specifically the dehumanization of illegal immigrants, or I don't even like to say illegal immigrants. I'd like to say people who are undocumented, because that's truly what they are. But this dehumanization goes into other things, with the naming of them being called animals or aliens. That is dehumanization, and as Christians, we ought to know that we are all created in the image of God, and to call someone an alien or to call someone an animal is not okay in any way. And I just feel like that should be we should all agree on that. But, unfortunately, some people don't agree with that. And, specifically that, when referring to, my people like that, it upsets me. But I can still think critically and see, okay, I don't like Donald Trump, but that doesn't mean that everyone who supports Trump is necessarily a bad person. You know what I mean? I feel like it's not so black and white as many people want to see it right now, and that's what I want to say to Catholics. Like, if someone is siding with Trump over the Pope, we shouldn't, obviously we don't agree with them because of what Trump has said to our spiritual father, but we should still treat them with respect, even if they're not treating us with respect or treating our religion with respect or anything like that. We should still treat them as humans, because one thing I've learned is, even when someone's not treating you well, even when people are not treating you like a human, you shouldn't do that, not because just because you're Christian. I mean, that's obviously a big reason, but we shouldn't do it because we're not those kinds of people. I'm not going to call someone what I've been called online because they said it to me, not because I don't care or anything, but not because I'm not that kind of person who's going to go that far, even if they did it to me. And I feel like, that would be my message to Catholics is like, hey, we don't agree with these people, and I think that they're wrong. And the way that they're treating our spiritual father is wrong. It doesn't matter whether you're a Protestant, Catholic, Eastern Orthodox, doesn't matter what you are. What I've seen and the treatment towards the Pope in no way is Christian. And it's not okay. But we shouldn't go that far to wish or talk that way about Donald Trump or JD Vance, even if, and I promise you, I'm not fans of these guys at all. I being honest, I despise them. I do. But I'm not going to be like them in order to combat them. Instead, I want to be more like Christ to combat them and combat those beliefs that I don't think are correct. And that would be my message to Catholics. But I just want to cover what was said. So, Pope Leo, all he's doing, there was no... I want you to I want you to think of this, okay? And think like this. There was no mentioning of names. There was no mentioning of nations. Well, I mean, like, he mentioned what nations were in the war, but he wasn't saying one is bad, or he didn't say, like, America sucks. He didn't mention Donald Trump, or J.D. Vance. And he wasn't getting political with it. He wasn't saying Republicans suck, Democrats suck. None of that, okay? I want you to keep that in mind. But what Pope Leo said, and this is not verbatim, but essentially what he said and the point of what he said is we should strive to make peace. War is not good, and we should strive to make peace. And I do not see how anyone could take offense to that. But the MAGA party took a lot of offense to that. And specifically Donald Trump. And went immediately to ad hominem towards Pope Leo. Saying, Pope Leo is weak on crime, weak on his policies are weak, or whatever. That he's weak, then that he wouldn't be Pope without Donald Trump. That is... oh my gosh. That's crazy. Let me find verbatim Trump's comments towards Pope Leo. Yeah. He said, Pope Leo is weak on crime, has terrible foreign policy. He, accused him of being naive. He claimed he was wrong on the issues and even suggested, this is what he said. He said, I guess that the Pope wants Iran to have nuclear weapons. Mind you, Pope Leo did not mention Iran. Pope Leo did not mention nuclear weapons. Pope Leo did not mention foreign policies, and Pope Leo did not mention crime. All Pope Leo said is that we should strive to make peace and that war is not good. That's essentially what he said. And in his speech, he was talking about God does not hear the prayers of those who wage war, which is a direct quote to Scripture. Let me pull it up right now. Here. Okay, I just want to make sure that I'm screen sharing. This is Isaiah 1:15. When you spread out your hands in prayer, I hide my eyes from you. Even when you offer many prayers, I am not listening. Your hands are full of blood. And, I think a lot of it is people taking what the Pope said specific out of context. The Pope did not say and this J.D. Vance made comments on this. He was talking about how was God not on the side of those who were liberating Jewish people from the Nazis, or was God not on the side, and using examples of war. But there's a difference. Those people were not waging war. Those people in the Bible who God commanded to go to war were not waging war either. They were not just committing violence. What Pope Leo said is those who wage war. So those who look for war, they have blood on their hands because they're looking for war. They are looking for violence. So it's not just saying that. God does not hear the prayers of those who are in war. He said, God does not hear the prayers of those who wage war. And he said, we should look to end the war. We should look to not seek war. We should look to prevent war. And if you ask me, and I think if you ask 99% of people, if you think, was this war preventable? And I want you to see the hypocrisy, right? Because pre-election, what Trump was campaigning about, and I don't want to get into too much into politics because that's not what this channel is for. But I just want to show you the hypocrisy. Pre-election, Trump's campaign was about Kamala Harris, and I'm also, I'm not political. I don't support any candidates. Trump said that Kamala Harris would be starting a war, and J.D. Vance said that J.D. Vance said we should not be sending our young soldiers, our young kids to war. Our kids, our sons should not be dying because of someone else's war. And now he's coming at the Pope and saying that, and specifically using war and trying to use the Bible to justify war. But how does this war benefit any of us? Because we hear talk about Iran having a nuclear weapon, they're dangerous. But then Trump also says that we're whooping Iran. So which one is it? Are we afraid of Iran or are we whooping Iran? That's just what I don't understand. And I don't see how this benefits any of us. War does not benefit any of us, which is, I think, what the Pope is trying to say, specifically waging war, us seeking out for war. Whether we think it may be good for a good reason or not. And the difference is, God commanding war is different than us commanding war, because that's a command from God. The author of life can choose to take life, but we are not the authors of life. We have no right to choose when to take life. There's certain circumstances where, we can look at the death penalty back in the day, or we look at, like J.D. Vance used it as an example, Nazi Germany. But that's not waging war. That's a difference. That was more in self-defense. And yeah, I want to just speak on this as well. So the Pope is getting a lot of backlash as well, because people are saying this Pope is too political, which I don't understand, because, and if that's what you're thinking about the Pope right now, the Pope is too political. Okay. And if, you're on the side of this war and you think that this war is justified, if the Pope were to agree with this war and say that this war is justified and that the U.S. is justified for getting involved with the war, would you still think that the Pope is too political? Would that even cross your mind? Or because the Pope disagreed with a statement or an action done by the United States, do you think that is too political by the Pope? Do you think, okay, well, the Pope can't be getting too political like this? So we need to be fair, because, I don't think that a lot of these people that are saying that this Pope is being too political would keep that same energy if the Pope agreed with them. As well as, I don't think it's political to talk about things that are going on in the world. The Pope is not taking the side of a Republican or a Democrat. But the Pope is taking the side of peace, which he mentioned, and I agree with this, is the message of the gospel. Peace and love. And having faith in Jesus Christ, that Jesus Christ is the embodiment of peace and love, and is what we and his who and what we should follow. So I don't think that it is wrong for the Pope, the Vicar of Christ, and some people don't agree with that, and I'll get into that later. But the Pope, whose sole role is to speak on matters of faith and morals, and bind the church on faith and morals, and guide the church, shepherd the church on faith and morals, I don't think it's wrong for him to preach peace in tense times in the world. It's not political, but what he's doing is using, okay, we have a tense situation in the world. How can we use Jesus and the Word of God and the Bible? How can we use Christianity to solve this problem? That's what he's doing. It's not a political thing. And I think that's unfair, because when other politicians like to use Christianity to justify whatever policy that they're talking about, most people don't bat an eye if they agree with them. But then if you disagree with someone who's not even political, but just preaching peace, then they're being too political. Oh, and then they're going out of their lane. No. War, which is a matter of faith and morals, right? War is a huge moral issue, and it's been the biggest moral issue for all of human history, really. And all popes have spoken on war, by the way. Or most popes. The popes who have lived through a war and been pope throughout a war have spoken on war. I just think that it's unfair, the treatment that the Pope is getting, specifically by Donald Trump, and to disrespect a religious leader like that because you don't agree with him. Forget Pope Leo being the Pope, but just as a human being to disrespect him like that is not okay, and it's a common theme that you see with him. Regardless of the status of whoever he's talking to. And I feel like that should show you, if you're someone that follows him, that, wow, this person, really doesn't embody the fruits of the Spirit with the way that they treat people and the way that they talk to people. I feel like that you should be looking at that. And specifically, to talk to a Christian religious leader, the religious leader of an eighth of the population, specifically, is absurd, and it's disgusting, quite frankly, to talk about that. And then I also want to mention what J.D. Vance, made a comment on. Telling the Pope, essentially just told him to stay in his lane, which I feel like is what J.D. Vance should do. Told him to be careful when speaking on matters of theology. But to even say that to the Pope is crazy to me. To say that to a successor of Peter, a successor of the apostles. I mean, I suppose J.D. Vance doesn't see that way. Maybe the church that he goes to has no sort of authority. But, I mean, even high church Protestants believe in apostolic succession. They argue that they have apostolic succession. I'm not going to get into that. That's not what this video is about. But apostolic succession is serious. And Catholics have that. Specifically, the Pope has that. And to say that, he really needs to stay in his lane, because on matters of theology, if we're comparing Pope Leo to J.D. Vance, it's not even close, okay? I'm going to show you right now, okay? Let's look at the theology credentials of Pope Leo. Okay, so he earned a Master of Divinity, which every ordained priest has to do. So, a Master of Divinity. J.D. Vance has no credentials of theology, by the way. Okay? He's this Master of Divinity. That alone should probably tell you I should probably stay in my lane. Not only that, a doctorate in canon law from the Angelicum in Rome. He's also an Augustinian friar. He taught canon law patristics, study of church fathers, and modern theology in Peru. Okay? Fluent in English, Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, and can read Latin and German. That's just crazy to me. I even say to someone, a previous cardinal, a previous bishop, just any ordained priest to say that to them is crazy to me. No matter who it is, if it's a Syrian priest, even an Anglican priest, an Eastern Orthodox priest, a Protestant priest, I need to have respect for those people because they are ordained priests. Whether I agree with them or not, they went to school for that. They worked hard to become a priest, and it takes a lot of theology and schooling for that, and also just a lot of discipline. And we should just have respect for religious leaders and just leaders in general and human beings in general. Not to mention, I think this right here specifically shows you where his heart is at. Trump cut off funds for a Miami charity of funding to house migrant kids. This is insane. Canceled an $11 million contract with Catholic churches and shelter care for migrant children who enter the U.S. alone, ending a relationship between the Catholic Church and U.S. government dating back to the first arrivals of Cuban exiles in Laos, Florida. That was his way of getting at the Vatican, getting back at them. Let's punish migrant kids who don't have parents. If that doesn't show you where his heart is at, I don't know what else, guys. I don't know. I don't know what else to say. This is disgusting. Quite frankly, that kind of attitude, that lack of empathy. Because the truth is, those kids have absolutely nothing to do with the war or the quarrel with the Pope. Absolutely nothing to do with it. But they're the ones being punished because of that. I think that should show you guys that none of this is okay. And yeah, that's really all I had to say. And I also want to, you guys, we need to think critically, okay? Whether you're a supporter of Trump and not a Catholic, and if you're a Catholic, on both sides, we need to think critically. We need to accept this, okay? Pope Leo can be wrong, and Donald Trump can be wrong. It's not black and white, okay? Not one is going to be 100% right all the time or 100% wrong all the time. And in this, two people can be right. Regardless of what I think. Everyone needs to think critically and not fall into this trap of blindly following someone and following someone no matter what they do because we think that they're always going to be right. So, yeah, that's what I had to say on the topic and on the matter. If you guys like this episode, please like and subscribe, and I would appreciate that. And like I said at the beginning of the video, if you guys could pray for my grandma, I would really appreciate that. Thank you.